Will we see a historic performance or a historic upset on Saturday in the Travers? Let's discuss. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, along with my colleague Kaylie Shapiro, and we are thrilled to welcome you to our official 2025 DraftKings Travers preview here on NYRA Bets. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button today on NYRA Bets YouTube to get all of our great content. Listen, Kaylie, this is the Midsummer Derby. This is the race I think we've been waiting for since we came up here to Saratoga. The week's finally here. We're going to have fast and firm conditions. What's your level of excitement for the 156th Travers Stakes?
Literally like a 20 out of 10. I don't even know how to rate it. Obviously, I've been looking forward to this race all summer, just knowing that they've been bottling up Sovereignty and saving a little bit left for him to put on a stellar performance in the Travers and hopefully deliver Belmont his first Travers win ever. I mean, that's historic in itself. And then Sovereignty is also looking to make history here. So it's a really exciting running of the Travers, and also the card is loaded from top to bottom. I mean, every single race, I don't even know. It's
absolutely
so much fun.
Personal ensign with Torpedo Anna and Leslie's Rose and Randomized and Raging Sea, or you look at the A-Challenge Jerkins, forget about it. We are going to talk for ages about that race on a preview that we do for that mandatory payout pick 5, which is not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but that's right, 5 grade 1 races in a pick 5. You want to play that one on Saturday. Come on. And so, listen, when it comes to the Travers, it's a short field. And I was talking to you about this off camera. It's a 5-horse field. The first time it's a 5-horse field since 1994. What happened in 1994, Kaylie?
Holy Bull.
Arguably the greatest running of the Travers ever. Ever. I'm looking at you, comment section. Let me know what you think the best running of the Travers is. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, there's a cause for concern. Come on. Let's get hyped. Tom Durkin at the top of the stretch with that call. Holy Bull. Game as a racehorse can be. What a hero. Listen, that was the last time. If we get that sort of a finish, are you kidding me? You might have a heart attack. But listen, it's going to be a lot of fun on Saturday for sure. But let's talk about this 5-horse field. And yes, all the talk is on Sovereignty. The coronation awaits if he wins as certainly the best 3-year-old. And then the next stop is the Breeders' Cup Classic, because he's won the Derby, he's won the Belmont, he's won the Jim Dandy, he's disposed of journalism, he's disposed of Baeza, he's disposed of every challenger that would be. And the only one left now is a new one in the form of Magnitude, who represents early and strong speed, as well as, I think, a horse you and I both think is sitting on a big effort, the number 3 Strategic Focus. But this is a really interesting race from a standpoint of pace dynamics and gamesmanship and just what you expect from a horse like Magnitude, who you don't know much about, as well as Strategic Focus.
Yeah, certainly. You'd have some new faces, like you said, Magnitude and also Strategic Focus facing Sovereignty for the first time.
Yeah.
I think all of these horses actually are facing Sovereignty for the first time, if I'm not mistaken. So all of them have a big task at hand. Really happy that, these horses showed up to keep the field very interesting. I mean, Sovereignty could have just ran alone and the Travers would have been amazing. But thank God 4 other horses showed up to run with him, because now it's going to be even more exciting. And obviously can't wait to see Magnitude, new face on the scene.
Yeah.
And I think that, we all know, I already know where I stand on this race. They've, meticulously managed this horse his entire 3-year-old campaign. I'm talking about Sovereignty. Belmont has done a tremendous job with the horse. Obviously he had him pretty much at, I'd say, I mean, I don't know an exact number. All I know is that he was fit for the Belmont. And he put on a massive performance that day. Afterwards, they didn't need him to be fully cranked or fit for the Jim Dandy. And he won pretty easily that day. And now they say, or Belmont himself has said, that Sovereignty is training and looking just like he did prior to the Belmont. And I believe that we'll see an even bigger performance from him on Saturday in the Travers.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, listen, I think it's so interesting you bring up that Jim Dandy performance, because it was very impressive the way he beat Baeza. And I think anybody who was in the paddock that day, anybody who can kind of assess horses physically, could tell that he wasn't the same level of fitness as he was in the Belmont that day, that he was a little round around the edges, that it was Sovereignty was fit to run, obviously, but obviously not in peak condition. And, it's so interesting. I think back to last year's Travers, because if you wanted the definition, if people out there are struggling to understand, like, what does cranked really mean? That sort of thing. Torpedo Anna in last year's Travers, sweet Jesus, I've never seen a horse more ready for a race in my life. I mean, Kenny had that horse physically as impeccable as one can possibly make a horse before that race. That's what I mean by cranked. When you look at a horse and you go, every single muscle is at maximum capacity. Yes. And when you looked at Sovereignty in the Jim Dandy, you thought, this will be a good workout. That was the impression you got. He didn't look the way he did before the Belmont. I wasn't there for the Kentucky Derby, but he didn't look the same way he looked before the Kentucky Derby either, just all through the screen. So it was pretty obvious where he was operating from. And it's also pretty obvious that when Belmont made the decision, along with Godolphin, to skip the Preakness and go to the Belmont Stakes and give the horse a little bit of rest, the number one reason given was we won a long 3-year-old campaign, and the Travers was a major factor in that. And so this was a race that this horse was pointed to before they even ran in the Kentucky Derby, because as soon as they won the Kentucky Derby, the Travers was really the reason he didn't go to the Preakness.
Absolutely. And you bring up Belmont and Godolphin and the fact that they had this race circled when they sat down at the beginning of this horse's 3-year-old campaign.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, Belmont, I think we've said this already, but Belmont is going for his first Travers win. How
pretty
happy
remarkable.
would Godolphin be to accomplish that with him? This is a race that they've had circled for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Belmont even said himself that if this horse wins, it would mean more to him probably than to the horse to win the Travers. To me, that means the horses, the Travers, it's everyone's dream to win this race.
I agree.
But that to me says that the horse probably has a lot more in store for him in his future as well. But I think he has full capability to beat this field in the Travers. Sure. And he showed a new dimension in his last 2 efforts right here at Saratoga. He had to sit closer to the pace than he ever has in the Belmont as well as the Jim Dandy. And he'll be sitting wherever he needs to be. Junior fits this horse like a glove, and he knows exactly where the horse needs to be in relation to the rest of the field and how the race is playing out.
Absolutely. You and I rewatched the Belmont Stakes right before we started recording this. I couldn't help but remember you almost passing out after that Belmont Stakes. But that's another discussion. That's another story. She was very excited. And but I remember just watching that and seeing journalism being asked for everything he had by Umberto Rispoli, and Junior doing nothing more than shaking the reins repeatedly and giving him a hand ride and going right by the second best horse of this 3-year-old crop. And in my opinion, physically, one of the, 3 or 4 most physically impressive horses at 3 years old that I've seen in my life, outside of maybe Pharaoh and Justify. It is, journalism is a freak of nature when you see him in person. And Sovereignty just blew right by him.
Yeah.
And now we have to buy Magnitude at 2-1.
Definitely. And journalism moved before Sovereignty as well as the Belmont, but they were sitting pretty evenly at
journalism was a little behind him initially. Then Umberto made that move.
Gradually moving up next to the horse. And they were kind of waiting on him, seeing what he was going to do. They moved before him. And as soon as Sovereignty was asked, he blew by him and they were linked up with him, at least in his first couple of strides. When this horse switches to his correct lead at the top of the stretch, it's over. Watch. The horse moves like a machine.
Yeah, he does.
He's every trainer's dream, every breeder's dream. I don't want to hype up the horse too much. Prior to the race, I'm like knocking on wood. I'm actually being pretty quiet about my love for the horse this week, because I hope he just talks, let the horse talk on the track. I think that's what he's going to do on Saturday.
Well, you brought up something interesting when we were watching that Belmont Stakes about watch the stride in that final 100 yards or so of journalism, who I have an immense amount of respect for and who I'm a huge fan of and have been for a long time, as you know, much to my betting detriment. And Sovereignty. Explain to the folks, if they're watching that last 100 yards of the Belmont Stakes, what did you see that made you go, do you see that? Look at the way he's moving compared to journalism.
And granted, I don't really mean who's finishing stronger.
No,
Obviously,
no.
Sovereignty was finishing stronger than Journalism at that point.
Yeah.
But what I was pointing out to Matthew was, the mechanics in
Yes.
which both of these horses move. I mean, Sovereignty, watch them side by side at the last, like you just said, at the last few steps of the Belmont Stakes.
Yeah.
And you could see the way Sovereignty just extends himself from his shoulder. He has that big chest, big shoulder, huge stride.
Yeah.
Journalism moves a little differently. Journalism is a very talented horse. He's the second best 3-year-old in this crop. And if Sovereignty wasn't in the discussion, he would be the best 3-year-old.
He'd be a Triple Crown winner.
He would be a Triple Crown winner.
That's crazy to
Probably.
think.
So to me, I just, I never really even noticed it prior to that. And granted, maybe Journalism was tiring a little bit.
That's the other thing is,
he never stopped.
He never stopped. But I think it's telling that horses will quicken up their stride a little bit when they're starting to get a little bit tired. And what you saw was a 1.25 mile race, and Sovereignty looking like he could run another 1.25 miles.
Absolutely.
And Journalism looking like, I'm tapped out at 1.25 miles. I don't really want to go much longer than this. And this is kind of, I'm shortening up my strides a little bit. The mechanics are starting to get a little faulty.
The mechanics I was really pointing out. Sovereignty is just...
And just as a runner, and this is, just to make this an analogy back to people, when you start a run, or maybe it's just me, when I start running, I have really good form. The first 0.2 of a mile, man alive, I look like I'm in the Olympics. The last 0.2 of a mile, my arms are flailing all over the place. My legs are just barely getting off the ground. Horses are the same way. That all animals are like that. That when they really get taxed and tired, their form starts to go. They start to. That's why they lug in, or they switch back to the wrong lead, or all sorts of things. But the point is, the mechanics of Sovereignty at 1.25 miles are flawless.
Definitely. And just in any way, even if they were just galloping on the Oklahoma in the morning, you'd see the difference between Sovereignty and everybody else.
Yes.
Which I see most mornings.
Yes.
I mean, the horse moves like a machine. I'll just really leave it at that.
Well, let's move to a horse that is going to be his biggest challenger, at least on the betting side of things. And that is number 1, Magnitude, who does represent early speed. And he is a horse that popped a huge number in the Risen Star all the way back in February at Fairgrounds and ran a 108, which was really a huge number. Nobody had gotten close to running that number of the 3-year-old crop. And he ran a 108, and a lot of excitement was around this horse. And 36 hours later, Steve Asmussen comes out and says he has a bone chip and he's off the Triple Crown Trail. And he kind of went out of sight, out of mind. That everybody just kind of said, Magnitude, or Sovereignty and Journalism kind of took all the headlines. And then suddenly Magnitude came back. And he came back in a big way in the Iowa Derby, won that very impressively in gate-to-wire fashion by over 9 lengths, earned a 105 buyer speed figure. Very comparable buyer speed figures to Sovereignty. And if you just look at the numbers, you would go, well, then this is a pretty even matchup. But
watch the replays.
Watch the replay, the caliber of competition. Just watch the physicals of these two horses. They are not quite the same.
No.
But Magnitude does represent early speed on a day when, hey, you never know what could happen if you have a great horse up front who gets brave on the lead and doesn't want to give up that lead. Yeah, it doesn't stop.
And that happens all the time. I mean,
we see it every day.
Historically, if you look back at big runnings of the Travers and the Belmont, you could see the amount of times it's happened historically. And Magnitude, obviously, you'll take this horse very seriously coming in here with 2 triple-digit figures. You'd imagine he's going to send aggressively out of the 1 hole. If he wasn't there, maybe he rates. I have the idea maybe that they'll try to rate him to get the distance. Think about it. I mean, his first time going 1.25 miles. I don't know if this horse is going to want to be up front facing pressure from a horse like Bracket Buster, who, yes, is a long shot in this race, but also has a great amount of early speed.
And the winning trip for Bracket Buster is to
just
intently track the early pace. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, I imagine them either linking up or sitting pretty close to one another. Yeah. And I just don't think that Magnitude, I mean, I'm trying to think of the scenario in which Magnitude can win. Okay. Yeah. So scenario A is that he's up on the lead. Yeah. He's flying. He establishes a really healthy big separation between him and the rest of the field. Yeah. Okay. And then he gets tired. Yeah. It's his first time going 1.25 miles. Yeah. Even if you have the pedigree. Yeah. It's his first time doing it, and I just don't think that he's going to be flying up and be able to sustain his run.
Yeah.
Maybe he can get the distance, and maybe if it was Chunk of Gold and, probably anybody else in this field besides Sovereignty, and I'd even argue Strategic Focus, waiting for him behind him, maybe he could, win, and therefore he got the distance. But he'll have Sovereignty looming right behind him. Or no matter how far Sovereignty is, if they go fast up front, they're going to set it up even more for Sovereignty.
Well,
I actually, and then scenario B is that they go a moderate pace in order to try to get the distance. And who's going to outkick who? Magnitude or Sovereignty? My bet's on Sovereignty.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I think up here in New York, anybody who's watched New York racing long enough knows they always choose option B. Now, Ben Curtis doesn't ride up here in New York, so he could choose option A and kind of say, hey, listen, this horse's best talent is his speed. So let's go. Ed DeRosa posted something the other day that I thought was very informative, which was the 5 fastest opening quarters and halves running the Travers, the horse running them didn't win. The 5 slowest runnings of the opening quarter and half in the Travers, the horse didn't win. So he's a little bit kind of you got to pick that right, not too cold, not too hot, just right kind of pace dynamic that you want to set in the early going. But if this was a New York based jockey, we're going to strangle 49 and 113 out of this horse up on the front end. This is what Dylan Davis tried to do. And no shots at Dylan, but this is what Dylan Davis tried to do on Lucara just last week in the Alabama was we don't know if we can get the 1.25 miles. So what are we going to do? We're going to go as slow as possible up on the front end to try to milk things out. But now you just consolidate the field. And one of the things we saw from Sovereignty is that ability to sit much closer to the pace in recent races. And so if you go slow, he's going to be 1.5 lengths off of you. And then when they turn for home, I can't believe that Magnitude is going to hold off Sovereignty at that point if he lets him that close to him early on.
I'm in complete agreement. I mean, they either go pretty moderate fractions up front and the field becomes pretty consolidated, like you just said, and Sovereignty's right in that pack.
Yeah.
And then it's literally who outkicks who when they get to the top of that stretch.
Yeah.
To me, I've seen Sovereignty in person with my own eyes outkick Journalism, outkick Baeza.
Yeah.
I think those are 2 pretty good horses. I'd say Journalism is a great horse.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he can add to that greatness on Saturday. And I think, and then listen, there will always be people who go, well, but now in the Breeders' Cup Classic, he's got to beat older horses. Okay, well, we'll see what happens in the Breeders' Cup Classic then. But at some point, you just got to accept the horse for what it is. Mm-hmm. And at some point, if the horse beats everybody that they're throwing up against him, he's a pretty damn good horse. Right. So, let's not overthink this. And the one horse that I think you and I both agree that is being actually ignored in some of these conversations is Strategic Focus. For trainer Chad Brown, this horse, in my opinion, is a far better bet than Magnitude. If you're a handicapper, if you fashion yourself as one of those, I don't know how you can give out Magnitude and not talk about Strategic Focus, because Strategic Focus is a better bet. Absolutely. Better bet by a mile than Magnitude.
I'm in agreement. When I saw the odds come out for the Travers, my eye immediately went to Strategic Focus without even looking at the form, because I just had remembered handicapping the Curlin and thinking, oh, this horse is coming in off a pretty big effort and is stepping up, switching off running without Lasix for the first time in the Curlin. Yeah. That can be explained, now second start without Lasix. This horse is going to take a step up. Strategic Focus. He has arguably one of the best trainers in the country, in the world, training him, Chad Brown, who's wins a ton of graded stakes here in Saratoga,
a couple weeks ago,
and is also always in the money. I mean, Strategic Focus, you have to take just as seriously as you're taking Magnitude coming into this race, in my opinion. Strategic Focus also has a triple-digit buyer speed figure if we're going off figures. And also, he's a lightly raced horse with pedigree for days.
Gun runner out of a Curlin mare. And the interesting part is he has that 102 buyer speed figure. The horse that he technically passed or passed the 5-wire first in front of, Malarchuk, he was DQ'd back to second. But the horse that he bested on the track that day, Malarchuk, ran a 101, backed it up with a 102. So you saw that number come back very real in that regard. And that's always good to see. And yeah, he's a horse that this is his 4th career start. We haven't seen the best of strategic focus yet, not by a mile. So I think this horse, get the blinkers on, draws to the outside of Magnitude and Bracket Buster. I think Flavian Pratt can have this horse in a perfect spot. I actually think it's interesting because we got the Jockey Club Gold Cup coming up next week. He can have this horse sit in that Highland Falls trip. That Highland Falls sat right off of Arthur's Ride and just pestered him, going a mile and a quarter. And guess what? Arthur's Ride said, no, that's not for me. And Highland Falls won. So I think Magnitude can see the 8th pole and go, okay, are we done? Oh, no, we still have another 8th to go. Crap. And kind of tap out. Whereas strategic focus, I think that horse made a winning move in the Curlin, flattened out a little bit late, but I think that was an educational effort, one that he could move on from.
And certainly the blinkers are going to help him
focus
as well. I mean, just based on his finish in the Curlin,
yeah,
if he had blinkers that day, I do imagine how the race could have played out. There was a lot going on there.
Yeah.
He's a young horse, but Chad Brown would not have him in this race if he didn't believe that he was mentally fit and physically fit enough to be in here.
I agree.
And I think he's a very intriguing option underneath. I know I'm going 4-3 in the Travers 100%.
Yeah.
And then yes. And then when you think about it for tries, I mean, I love to play multiple different bets. I mean, most of my betting, I'd imagine, though, is going to be done in the other races. I'll probably put a ton on Sovereignty just for fun. I do every time he runs. And then he'll be a single and I'll move on and I'll play a straight exacta. But if you're playing a try, a straight try in this race, Magnitude's 2-1. I think he'll take a bit more money, as will Sovereignty. And then you'll have some others float up. So for me, strategic focus, 6-1 or higher. Great bet right underneath. And then for a try, I mean, what am I going to do? Put Magnitude 3rd when I think that he could very well flatten out and tire. For his first time going a mile and a quarter. I mean, I'm looking at the other options in here. I don't think I sound crazy, but I'd even mess around with putting McAfee in a try. That horse picks up pieces in every race that he runs. Granted, he's never won a race outside of when he broke his maiden, but his sister, Torpedo Anna, relishes a mile and a quarter. I mean, he has the McLean's music influence with cloud computing, so it's a little bit different. I mean, tons of questions, but we know that
but he seems to run late, though.
And he'll be lugging along at the back of the field, and we know that he'll be picking up pieces. So
you never know.
I know
that's the thing.
It's not necessarily, that's not my top 3. I'm just saying, if you're trying to get creative, I think there's a few different ways that you can go in this race. For me, I mean, I'm very strong on 4-3.
And I think one of the things that's interesting is when you get into the runnings of these races, particularly a short field, if you have a horse like Sovereignty, who, let's say he does what you and I both think he can do, which is draw off and win by a distance, sometimes the other horses start to let up if you're not getting a mile and a quarter. The late Chuck Simon always said, when talking about the Kentucky Derby, he goes, it's always important to remember, Matthew, 5 of these horses are walking home. Like, they're, and so the order of finish is always going to be, and you listen, jockeys do right by these horses all the time. They're going to protect them. They're not going to go all out if they don't think this horse has a chance. And so if Ben Curtis knows that Magnitude's cooked at the 8th pole or the 16th pole, he's not going to sit there and keep asking this horse for more and more and more. And so it's very possible a horse that's up on the front end just says, okay, the jockey starts to stand up a little bit, starts to go, okay, your day's over. And a horse like McAfee, who tends to come running late, could really run up into something, and crazier things than happen than him finishing 3rd. So, like I said, in these kind of mile and a quarter races, small fields, maybe a big winner, weird things can happen. And so planning on that from a betting standpoint is probably not a bad idea. Listen, it's going to come down to your opinion of Sovereignty. If you think he's the winner, then, like you said, you single him, you move on, and you don't entertain any other options. If you think you can beat him, then you got to use Magnitude. You got to use strategic focus. Those are the only 2. Now, an alternative would be, if you try to beat him, you single Magnitude or you single strategic focus, and you use your single in another way. So there's some ways to strategize around this while still keeping a very affordable ticket and being able to spread in a race like the 8 Challenge Jerkins, which that's quite a race that I can't wait to talk to you about. But
absolutely, and I can't wait to come back and tell everyone how we're going to play that sequence, because I just cannot wait for that. That's
going to be a lot of fun. And we have a video coming up on Friday where Kaylie and I are going to break down that all grade 1 pick 5. It's a mandatory payout, pick 5, races 9 through 13. Personal Ensign, Forgo, Ballerina, H. Allen Jerkins. Let's top it off with the Travers. Are you kidding me?
And
that's going to be fun.
Absolutely. And as for the Travers, obviously hoping everyone has a great trip, a safe trip.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I hope I mean, obviously, but I'm hoping that all of these horses show up though. Like I'm hoping Magnitude runs his race.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping this one runs their race. I really am.
Yeah.
With, I believe Sovereignty is going to win, but I would like for him to earn it here and actually to put on a pretty big performance as well. So let's hope that, Magnitude does try to run for days and maybe he does get loose on the lead and Sovereignty runs him down. How exciting would that be?
Yeah. So, is there a cause for concern all over again from 1994? And listen, I also want to say in this video, you and I both share this sentiment. A tip of the cap to Steve Asmussen for bringing Magnitude here. I think that's something important to say. We didn't mention this. We mentioned in the Spotlight video, but mentioned it here as well. As soon as he won that Iowa Derby, he said, we're going to the Travers. Listen, a lot of horses are ducking Sovereignty, which, by the way, might be a good indication of what everybody thinks of Sovereignty. It might be a good indication of how great the horse is, that nobody wants to run against him. No. But Asmussen said, we're running. And I give him a ton of credit for that because everybody else is running down to Bensalem, Pennsylvania to run the Pennsylvania Derby. And journalism staying out in California to run against older horses, which is its own test.
Absolutely. But and he knows, I mean, he knows what he has. He's looking at, he's saying, wow, this is a very talented 3-year-old and he's never faced Sovereignty. Let's give him a shot on the big stage. And props to him and also everyone else who brought a horse to this race.
Absolutely. Vicky Oliver and Rick Dosho Jr. and obviously Chad with Strategic Focus. So listen, it's a short field, but like I said, the last time it was a short field, pretty good race. So listen, folks, for Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a happy and safe and profitable Travers Day and reminding you, it's now. Post time.